Alright y'all, on today's edition of Loophole Performance, what we're going to be doing is replacing the air strut on my 97 Lincoln Mark Viii. This applies from the 93s to 98s. There might even be something applicable to some of the other years equipped with forward air suspension. Yeah, first thing you're going to want to do is get the car up in the air and get the wheel off. I'm already at that point, so we'll go through with the next steps. So once you've got your wheel off and it's in the air, you're going to take a Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to undo these two little plastic clips. They'll come out about right to there. There's one here, one there. The whole thing starts spinning. Put your finger on the edge and that'll kind of help slow it down. Once they're out, you'll be able to get access to the other three bolts that help hold the top of the air strut in. And then that just comes out like so. Now so once you've got that little cover off, on the driver's side at least, you'll see this little thing right here, which is part of the vacuum system. It's held on by these two bolts right here that have the flathead in them. Mine are usually too tight to get with a flathead, so just take an 8mm, bust them loose, and you can work it off. Fold that over to be held on by the master cylinder. And a real good way to make sure that those don't get lost is just to put them back where they went in. You can see I've done the same thing with the cover, just to make sure those little plastic screws don't get lost. So with that out of the way, we now have access to those three bolts. We can get, or those three nuts, excuse me, and we can get those out. I believe those are 13. And you're going to want a deep socket. Now, at least in my experience, if you get air struts brand new, they'll typically come with 3 new of these nuts. But I still like to hang on to them just in case. Take this little ring off. And that's about everything. On the top side, you can see how it's pretty loose now. Now this piece right here is your ride height sensor. There's a little ball on the control arm here and on the frame here that tells the computer how much air and where this airbag is sitting at. You do have to get it loose to make it easier access at the sensor back there. How you do that is this little silver tab up at the top. Push it back towards the car and it flops right out. Same thing for the bottom. See that silver tab right there. On the bottom one, you pull it towards yourself, it pops right out and dangles out. You can see in there, that's where it hooks onto the ball. You can see right there, there's your ball. And up at the top, you can see it up there on the control arm. Now, through the magic of already having, well, a broken one, I can show you the easy way to take this apart in the car. You got your sensor connector at the bottom, of course, and the easy way to get it undone is you're going to have a metal clip locking this in place. You're going to rotate it one turn all the way to the left. If there's pressure in your bag, it'll force it down, and that's where it'll bleed all the air. You'll let it bleed all the air, and then you'll do one more click to the left, and the sensor will come right out. There's oftentimes a little O-ring. Make sure you grab that out and don't forget it. You can also purchase sensor rebuild kits for these. They're very reasonable and they're very easy to do. Now, as far as getting the little airline out, what you will do is normally it'll be sitting something like this, in this position, kind of poked out. You'll take a pick, force it in while pulling out on the line. It will take some effort. They're not designed to come out very easily. It'll take some effort and then it'll come right out. The last time I did this, I did find it easiest to remove the upper ball joint stud. It's a pretty easy thing to do. You undo this nut, this slides out that way, put a chisel in there to spread it a little bit, and this whole thing will come out, giving you easier access to get that bag out. That's probably the route I'll go this time too, just to make my life easier. So let me go get the tools. Let's get after it. So I've got my 18mm deep on the nut. Throw the ratchet on there. It's going to take some effort because it's also a nylon lock nut. You really don't want this coming loose while you're driving. Keep working it. I really ought to invest in some power tools one of these days. At the end, sometimes that bench bolt gets stuck in there, so you just take a hammer, whack it right there. I'm going to use my ratcheting hammer. Out she comes. Sometimes it's easier to rotate it to back it out too. You could also take a punch, I suppose, and put it in the hole and drive it out that way. And out she comes. And then on mine, since I've done the upper ball joints not that long ago, a couple whacks with our ratcheting hammer. Works it pretty loose. I think I'm still going to go get my actual hammer. Something else you can do, though it's not the most recommended thing in the world, is you can get a screwdriver, big flathead screwdriver in there. Tap it in, spreads it. Ball joints out. That'll drop right like that. You can see up in there, plenty of room for activities. Now the only thing that's left is down here at the bottom on this side. So we got to get after that big nut and its friend on the back side. Ignore the Torque and tire or sway bar end links. I've got new parts for them, and that'll be in a video coming out shortly. So the back side, the nut on that bottom through bolt is a 21. So let's get it loose. Now, as I said before when I was tearing that airbag apart, I have replaced this before. That's why it's coming apart so easily for me. Your mileage may vary. Spoke a little too soon there, huh? Alright, went for the big guns. Now it's just a matter of getting that bolt out, finding the nut. I'm going to thread it back on there just a few turns. Give it a little tappy tap. Okay. Out. This bolt's always one of the fun ones. There we go. Bent it up just enough. I can now start to use the threads to chase it back out. And that's what I had to do last time too. And you can tap that back down with a hammer as soon as you got it out. The end of this nut is an 18. Now, to everybody in the comments saying you should have switched to coils, they're more reliable. Yes they are. However, having had a Mark VIII on bags and having this Mark VIII on bags and a first gen on coils, I much prefer the Ride of bags. Not to mention this is black on black that I bought from the original owner with 106,000 miles. Paint's screwed up like they all are. But that's okay. I feel this one's worth saving. So now that bolt's out, what you're going to do is up at the top, compress it down to the point where you can get it underneath that control arm. It comes right out. It's as easy as that. Even with filming, this only took me about 25 minutes. That right there's our culprit. As the bag would deflate, it'd rub on the solenoid. That's why it's being replaced.